Well, there are also questions over the future of violence-ravaged Afghanistan, with US troops ready to leave next year. American firms are already queuing up to take over more of the military's duties there as the US government continues to pour billions into contracts. Let's talk to Phyllis Bennis. She's a Middle Eastern UN issues activist. She's on the line now to talk to us live. Phyllis, hi there. Barack Obama said last week, didn't he, that the US should focus more on nation building at home. This at the same time, of course, that America still feels the need to employ expensive security contractors to carry on working in Afghanistan. Why don't they pull more fully out of Afghanistan and let them get on with it?
Well, you know, right now there are more than 110,000 military contractors working in Afghanistan under payment from the United States, mainly by the State Department, some from the Pentagon. There's less than 65,000 U.S. troops, so there's already far more contractors, or mercenaries, if you like, than there are U.S. troops. This is very similar to the situation we saw in Iraq, where with the complete pullout of U.S. troops and Pentagon-paid contractors, there was a kind of slip of the hand in the language where the agreement between Iraq and the United States required the withdrawal of all contractors paid by the Pentagon, but it didn't explicitly say anything about contractors paid by the State Department. So all of a sudden, a lot of those contractors, there's now about 15,000 in Iraq, are being paid by the State Department instead.
Why is that, Phyllis? Why are they working?
Earlier.
Why? Why are they working for the State Department as opposed to the military when they're doing the same job? What's the point of that?
The point of that is that there was an agreement signed between the United States government and the Iraqi government that prohibited any U.S. troops from being in Iraq and any Pentagon-paid contractors from being in Iraq after the end of 2011. December 31st, 2011, they all had to be gone. That was a big deal. That was a very widely publicized agreement. It's a fudge. It's absolutely a fudge. Now, whether it's the same fudge in Afghanistan is not so clear. I don't believe, and much of this is very opaque. It's hard to get information about exactly who has signed off on these contracts, whether it's the State Department or the Pentagon. But right now, there are many being paid by the by the State Department, as well as some by the Pentagon. It may be that there will be the same agreement. We know that the agreement signed between the U.S. and Afghanistan allows for some number of U.S. troops to remain after the end of 2014. But we don't know either the final number, if that's been agreed to yet. It's being held privately. And we also don't know the critical question of whether the Afghan government will allow those U.S. troops to serve with immunity. That was the reason they were all pulled out of Iraq. The Obama administration was not prepared to have U.S. troops who might be accused of war crimes and might indeed be guilty of war crimes be sent to trial in Iraqi courts. They may face the same decision in Afghanistan. So if there is no immunity, they will pull out all the troops and substitute only U.S.-paid contractors. At the end of the day, whether they're paid by checks drawn on the State Department accounts or the Pentagon accounts, it doesn't really matter. They are U.S.-paid mercenaries doing the work of the U.S. military.
And those 9 military bases that Hamid Karzai said can stay after 2014 with conditions, how permanent are they likely to be?
Well, if that's the only agreement that's signed, that Karzai simply says they can remain until a future government in Afghanistan says they can't. This was, again, an issue in Iraq where there were more than 500 bases created by the U.S., and the final agreement between the U.S. and Iraq required them all to be either dismantled or turned over to the Iraqi government. We have not seen Karzai stand up for that kind of evidence of sovereignty, if you will, in Afghanistan. And again, he has already said that he would allow thousands of troops. The numbers have varied. There's been estimates of as low as 8,000 and as many as 22,000 that the Obama administration would like to keep in Afghanistan after the withdrawal of so-called combat troops. That means these would likely be mainly special forces. Their job will be largely to kill Afghans, not to do anything else. They will be special forces troops. There will be some trainers. But their job will be to kill people in the country.
And of course, the bigger question, why is the US risking fueling tensions by maintaining any military presence there at all? Of course, the Taliban has been particularly strong in going on record to say that the foreign presence in the region is an obstacle to peace. So why is the US risking fueling more tensions by keeping people there?
This has everything to do with the neighborhood where Afghanistan is located. Afghanistan doesn't have oil on its own, but it has a large territory in the midst of a very crucial neighborhood in terms of oil and in terms of the expansion of power. The U.S. wanted, for example, to keep permanent bases in Iraq that it could use as a base from which it could attack Iran. The Iraqis said no. The Afghans will be asked the same thing. Will they allow those bases, even if it's only 9 of them, to be used potentially to attack other countries in the neighborhood? That's one of the things the U.S. is very eager for on a permanent basis. It's not so much about the immediacy of the Taliban. As you say, everyone knows that the presence of U.S. troops in Afghanistan is making it much more difficult, not easier, for there to be serious peace negotiations between the various factions in Afghanistan, whether it be the Taliban, whether it be the Afghan government, whether it be a host of other factions that are all competing for power.
Phyllis, late last year, President Karzai said foreign contracts are a major cause of corruption in Afghanistan. Let's talk about that for a second. How could that problem be solved?
The only way to really solve it is for the U.S. to stop sending billions of dollars to support that government. Now, the argument will be, well, if you don't, that government may not survive. And that's absolutely true, because it doesn't appear to have the indigenous support of the population that would allow it to survive as an independent government. It's only kept in power by U.S. funds, U.S. military support, etc. Without that, it would collapse. Now, would that be good for the people of Afghanistan? No, because there would be a lot of violence, a lot of fighting to fill that void. But the situation now is devastating for people in Afghanistan. We know that there have been tens of millions of dollars over recent years. Every month, deliveries made to Karzai's own strategic support office. In his office, they are brought in bundles of U.S. dollars, usually $100 bills, in everything from plastic bags to suitcases full of cash. No accountability, and it's being used as simply payout to pay off the warlords, to pay off the other violent actors in the interests of Karzai's own small group. Now, whether he personally has benefited from it is not so clear, but it sort of doesn't matter, because it's been his family, people close to him, that are the key accused in terms of receiving this stuff. And the key is that it's given him the ability to buy off massive numbers of political forces, warlords, members of parliament, etc., that has kept the government of Afghanistan completely dysfunctional. Remember,
Phyllis,
we're already talking about a country that does not have a history of this kind of central government.
Phyllis, we could talk about this a lot more. We could talk about it all night, I know, but thanks for your thoughts for now. We're out of time. Phyllis Bennis there, Middle East and UN issues activist. Much appreciated.
Thank you.